Hello, good evening everybody. Welcome to the Spirited Art Studio on Facebook Live. I am coming to you from my office studio tonight instead of what I have been doing typically on Facebook, which is to be live streaming from my kitchen table. So tonight, I'm here in my studio office, which is, as an art therapist, I have a studio office, and it's where I do have my practice, and my practice is Foster Art and Wellness. If you want to check out that sometime, I do have a website, so I'd be happy to have you have a look at that. So the reason I came here tonight was because I have a few of my favorite watercolor art supplies that I needed to come and find here, and so that I can share what I've got planned with you tonight. I wanted to have my watercolor, some of my watercolor stuff that I like to take with me when I'm using paints outside, when I'm painting watercolor on plein air. I don't speak Francais, so en plein air it simply means in the fresh air. So it's a term about painting, basically painting in location, outside, out of doors, when you're painting some scenery or painting botanical sketches, as we're going to do tonight. Although I am going to be painting from my art studio, this is simply because of technology and wanting to make sure that I am plugged in and the Wi-Fi and everything is working, so we don't have technical issues and I don't lose the connection in the middle of live streaming. So that is pretty much, well, that's one of the reasons I'm not outside tonight. The other reason is it is a little chilly out there. It's not the sunny weather I was hoping for, but I do really enjoy getting outside, as you will see if you look back to one of my other live stream posts where I do have a video. I think it's July, around, I think the last week of July. I created a video on my patio at my home, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was sketching and drawing using ink and pencils. So I was using not what I'm going to be using tonight. I was not using watercolors, but I was drawing in plein air. So I highly recommend just giving that a try, even in your own backyard or patio or balcony, whatever you have as a means to get outside, or even taking a walk out in a park somewhere, maybe taking a lawn chair with you, and just so if you're going to do that, I recommend bringing a sketch pad, and if you're going to watercolor, then you want to have paper that is good for watercolor. So for example, this one that I'm going to be working on tonight. So this one is happens to be from Delta Art. You can get that from any one of the specialty art studios, art stores, art supply stores, or you can also find watercolor paper in Michael's, or also you can find it at Staples, and sometimes I believe you can find watercolor paper even at Dollarama. The best thing to do is just to make sure it's nice and thick, so that when you apply water to the surface, it's not going to really ripple and buckle on you. So if it lies nice and flat, because it's a nice heavy paper, that is what cooperates best when you're adding a lot of water to it, which is what you would be doing if you are painting with water and watercolor, as that probably sounds sensible. So I'm also just going to share with you, so what I'm creating in my this watercolor journal is a couple pages that are gratitude pages. I'd sort of what I could use maybe like for daily gratitude. So this says, today is a beautiful day, and this says, today I am thankful for, and I will take pictures of this when it's complete and post it on our Facebook page, and then you will see it forwards instead of backwards as you're seeing it now. But this is because of the way it is with Facebook live streaming and sort of the selfie format. Wording is all backwards. So, but I want to show you this just for an idea. For this can just be a really nice daily practice. It's just getting in touch with what you're grateful for, because that is kind of become a real go-to in positive psychology, is just contemplating gratitude and what you're grateful for. And so you could create something like this, a list. You could leave the lines blank like this, and then maybe you could create prints, or you could even just have this and just leave it blank. And it can just be a reminder for you, and maybe you never fill in those blanks, and you could have, for example, a different paper where you could write down your list of what you're grateful for, and just keep this as just a part of your art journal. So what is part of this that I wanted to also recommend is just having some fun with cursive writing, and then using this sort of contemporary calligraphy technique. So basically, when you create your calligraphy, you just do your natural handwriting as you would do always. So some of us might be more familiar with doing a lot of handwriting before really computers were so prevalent, and even our phones, we don't really often write anymore. Handwriting is becoming an art more than it is just a regular daily thing. So that's what I've been noticing. I tend to text and email much more than I do any handwriting, but I just value this as a part of something that can be just an art, and that can be just a part of just creative journaling. So I've started on this page, I just first of all created my cursive writing, and then so it was all done with the fine tip on this dual tip Sharpie. So just with one thin stroke, and then as you can see on each of these letters, on this first part, the downstroke is doubled up. So on each letter, so for example, the T, as you can see here, the downstroke is thickened and doubled up, but the cross stroke along the top is just left thin. And so that's the same with the O. On the down stroke of the O, the line is thickened up, but the rest of the O, the line is like, for example, when I go up and around, that is all remains the thin fine point tip, and so on. As you go across, you can see all the lettering, all the down strokes of each letter are thickened up, but then as you wrap around each letter, the rest of the letter is left in a thin fine point. So that is a little bit of this, what's called now as contemporary calligraphy. Hi, Lynn. Thank you. How can the lettering be shown without it being a mirror image? Well, it's kind of hard, because then I could flip the phone around. I could give it a try, but what I will do instead is at the end of the live streaming, I will show a photograph. But maybe what I can quickly do is just try flipping the phone around, and so show you. Today is a beautiful day, so you can see that is now no longer backwards, because I've flipped my phone around so that it's showing forward. And so this is, thank you for suggesting this, Lynn. Actually, this isn't working out too badly. So you can see here, today I am thankful for, so this is where I've started going back into the fine tip letters, and on the downstrokes, thickening up the stroke. So I've started a little bit on this side. So I'm finished with today is a, and I've started working on beautiful, but I'm not finished. So I will continue with the letters, just thickening up the downstroke of the letters. And this is basically how to do the contemporary calligraphy that has become really popular now. And you often see this a lot in just different things on social media. This cursive contemporary calligraphy has become really popular. And so it's fun to just kind of do it yourself as well, and not just use, rather than use a font on your computer. It's kind of nice to do it creatively by just sketching it. So that is that. So I'm just going to flip this around again and get this back into position so that I can paint, and hopefully you can watch, so that I have my phone live streaming here, and it's propped up so that hopefully you can see as I apply paint to these pages, because as you can see, along with the writing, I've also sketched flowers, and these flowers are what you would find if you came to RWUC and saw the beautiful flower gardens that they have here. I took some photos of the flower gardens, and if you look on our Facebook page, you'll find on our Spirited Art Studio Facebook page, you will find some photographs that I posted that I took photos of today. And those photos I'm using as a reference for these sketches. So there's some really nice sunflowers that are all in a row on one side over by the playground. And so I took a picture of the sunflowers, for example, and then I just I just carefully sketched out this sunflower, and just by studying it and just noticing the way the petals are situated around the center of the sunflower, and just noticing all the different structural details of the flower and the leaves and the stem, and just just having fun with just studying it carefully and sketching it out here on the paper. So Lynn, what a great idea the contemporary calligraphy is. I've been trained in italic and unique. Oh, wow, that's wonderful. I'd love to see some of your calligraphy, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. And I will, for anybody who creates any responses in the feedback underneath the screen, thank you. I love to hear or see responses, and usually when the live stream is over, I will go back and reply to any of your responses. For example, even if you had a question about how did you do this or how did you do that, or where can I buy this or that, I would be more than happy to respond. And I also try to put the Spirited Art Studio email address in a post in case you wanted to send a more lengthy email or have any questions about anything that you would want to. You could also PM or private message right on the Facebook page. And also, the last thing I want to remind you of is that we do have a private Facebook group page. So you just need to find it in groups. So on your Facebook, you can scroll and find groups, and then you can look up Spirited Arts Movement, RWUC, and you can just ask to sign in, and we will be more than happy just to add you into that group. So, and then we would be so delighted to have you share any kind of artwork or any kind of information about arts that are happening around the neighborhood, around our city, and or just anything you'd like to share about art. I'd just be really happy to see that. So yeah. So now I'm going to just do a little bit of the watercolor. So like I was saying, I've got this sketched out, and so I'm going to begin with this sunflower that I've got right on this corner here. And I'm using this very portable a watercolor paint set. It's called Koi Watercolors. It's a Japanese set, and what I really like about it is it's just so easy to use. If you're taking it outside, it's just very portable. It has a brush, and the brush can be filled with water, so you don't necessarily need to have water with you. You can just you squeeze the body of the brush, and the water comes out through the brush, and then you can just dip it into the paint and use it as you would a regular watercolor brush. It's just more portable this way. So this is really for outdoor watercolor. This is my favorite kind of set. And what's really nice about it too is it opens up like this. It has this plate that you can set up, and then you can mix your colors on the plate, or what you can also call a palette. But then when you're finished, you can just put the palette back on top, and then you just shut it, and then you've got everything contained, and then you can just put it in your pouch or your whatever kind of pocket you might have, like backpack or pencil case or anything. Another thing that's really nice to have is your watercolor paper or even sketchbook that is small enough to also fit in the drawing case. So that makes everything portable, so that you can go take it and go walking in trails in the down in the river valley, or wherever you happen to be, and just paint scenery or paint up close, as I'm doing tonight, of any botanicals that are in your vicinity that you can have a close-up look at. So I'm just going to start that. Oh, and another great thing about this is it has this little hook on the bottom of it. So you can pull the hook out, or ring, I guess you could say. And this can just help you to have everything all in one hand while you have your brush in the other hand. And then you're all set. And then you have your watercolor paper ready to go, or your sketchbook, or whatever you have. And hopefully it's something that you can just easily have right on your lap as you sit on a park bench, and so on. So that is just a few tips for watercolor painting when you are outside. So I think there's a little bit of time left for this. It's fall is approaching quickly, and September, but then all of the beautiful colors start to arrive as the tree leaves begin to change color. And so we can even do what I will be doing on Wednesday afternoon is to have a look at leaves up close as they begin to change color. And this can be just a wonderful, again, a wonderful mindful practice of painting, of just looking at things really closely, studying them closely, noticing the detail. And as you notice the detail, just do your best to replicate it as you paint. And so this is what can be a very mindful, regular practice. So I'm going to begin with my sunflower, as I was saying. And I just want to show you over here that what a nice thing to do is to have some paper off to the side, or even you can lift it up, or if you had both of your pages open, then you can test your colors. so that you can see how the colors are looking when they're bolder or as you add more water, and how they can lighten up. And when you look at your palette, your colors can all look very dark on this watercolor palette, but as soon as you add water to them, as I will show you, they really lighten up. So I'm just going to demonstrate that by, I think just for time wise, I may only have time to do the one flower. So that is what I've chosen to do is the sunflower. So if you look on scroll down, you'll see these photos, and I welcome you to use these photos as reference for your painting as well. Or I think though I really believe that the best way to paint is, if at all possible, is to paint from the real thing, like having the real florals right in front of you, where you can see them, understand them better. By looking at a photograph, sometimes you don't really understand exactly what you're seeing, and how the leaves are formed, or how the petals are really looking. And you can just have when you get really close up, you can really have a good look and have a better understanding of what you are going to paint. So that's another thing I'd want to say. Thank you, Lynn. Thanks. That's so nice of you to say, and I really appreciate that. Thanks. So, yeah, so we're going to do the sunflower. I think that's true. I often find I get inspired by artists of other who use different media, writers, musicians, any kind of creative arts. There's just so many different ways to have creativity in your life, and it's always so true that one artist and their ways of doing art can be very inspiring to others. So even just to see somebody doing their art, that's what I have really found when I go. I love to go out and see all the sites and things that are going on in Edmonton. So I basically, right now, I'm just going to put down a basic color on each of the areas that I want to have covered. I'm starting with yellow and starting with, I guess, this golden color in the sunflower, because these are the lightest colors. And so especially if you're outside working with watercolors, it's a good idea to start with the lightest colors, because your paintbrush will really get dark, or your paint water, if you happen to be using some water, you have water with you, it slowly gets colored darker and darker with the more colors that you use. So when you begin with your lightest colors first, that can just help keep your water working for you as long as possible before you need to clean and refresh it. So I'm just going to basically fill in my petals just very roughly right now. And with one solid color of this golden sort of watercolor. And then later, so there's some hard work going on upstairs in the church right now, and I'm not sure exactly what that's about, but it's interesting and it's got me curious. So this is the beginning of this sunflower. So I think it's safe enough to lift it up and show you because it's not too watery yet. So right now it definitely looks like a sun and not a flower yet, which I guess, you know, the essence of the sunflower is it kind of looks like the sun. That's kind of obvious, I guess. So while I'm letting that dry, I'm just going to move down to the stem and the leaves and just quickly add some color to that area. And I'm going to just checking which green I'm going to start with. I think again I'm going to start with the very lightest green and just create the stem. There, that worked out nicely. And I'm just going to add just a little bit of green just around the edges of sunflower. Just where I was noticing that it gets a little bit of that around the edges, if you notice in the detail in the photograph. And I think what I will be doing is adding a little bit of some reds in there as well, and eventually add the sort of the browns of the seeds in the center of the sunflower. The one thing that is great to do when you're working with watercolors is just to slowly layer the color, like I said, beginning with lights and just work darker and darker and in layers. And when you look at the photograph, or even when you're outside and you're looking at the leaves, you'll see all the variations in the shadows and in the brightest areas of the petals and in the shadows, just the whole variety of color from the lightest area to the darkest areas, and you want to see what you can do to try and capture those lights and darks in your painting. And you can choose to be as detailed as you want in your watercolor painting. Maybe you just want to keep it very simple and not add too many different colors, because sometimes it can get a little muddy looking, and depending on how much time you have, or just maybe sometimes just capturing the essence of something can just be absolutely beautiful in itself. So that can be just a nice way to create your your images as well. So I'm just painting in right now, just keeping with one basic flat color, and then I will add in more color as I go. So this is how it's looking so far. And I'm going to add a few more colors eventually. And one thing I also wanted to mention, a great idea for adding really small little detail is to use the watercolor pencils, because then you can get a nice, a really nice sharp detail with it. For example, this is a watercolor pencil, and so I can use it right in the point and just shade in right on top of what I've already painted, and then add the detail with the pencil, which is a lot easier to handle than the tip of your paintbrush. So that's another thing to think about, is having a set of watercolor pencils, and then you can just add water to them with your watercolor brush afterwards, or you can choose not to as well. So that's just another thing to think about. So I am going to move over and work on these other florals on the other side of my page here. I'm going to add some yellow to the centers to begin with. And then I'm going to add the pinks. So these are sort of like these florals that I'm not sure the name of them, but they kind of look like poppies. So if you have a look at the photographs that I posted today, if anybody can have a look at them and just note, because you're a gardener and you're an expert at knowing your flowers when you see them, if you can add to the page, to the photos I posted. For example, I know that the one photo is of sunflowers, so you could post sunflowers and then could add the rest later. So right now I'm going to paint my poppies, and I'm just going to add again some paint to the stem. And then, just to add to that, I'm going to add some color, sort of this fuchsia, deep fuchsia color on the one poppy here. I'm just calling it poppy for now, because that is what it kind of reminds me of. So I'm just kind of adding the paint in on one side and then adding more water to the other just so that then each petal has a light side and a darker side. So I'm hoping that that is visible for you to see it. On the screen, I mean, as I'm doing this detail of on my journal. It looks like it's visible at the bottom of the screen there. And in a moment I'll lift it up to the screen and you can see what I've done. So again, I'm adding paint to one edge of the petal, and then I add just clear water for the rest of the petal so that it gives the distinction between the light and the dark sides of the petals. So, just about got that. So just trying to create this sort of light, airy kind of look that the petals of this kind of flower have. They're just so delicate and light and airy, and they just move very easily in the breeze. So you just want to sort of create that kind of feel. So this is the darker flower, and then there's also another one that was just a little bit lighter, so I'm just going to create the lighter color by putting the paint on the palette and then adding lots of water to the paint so that it will automatically be a lighter color. And I'm just going to add just a little bit of blue just to sort of have a sort of lilac color that I'm trying to, the sort of mauvey lilac color. Add some more, lots of water to it. And then I'm just going to test it on my test paper over here and see if I like it. And I think that that is a good starter color. And then I will apply this color to the paper. And then as soon as I've applied it to the paper, I'm just going to apply it to one edge of the petal as I work around my way around the flower. Each petal will have a darker side. So now I've got that darker side, and I'm just going to add extra water so that it's almost white and clear color of the page, except it's not, because my paint water is now this color. So it's going to make things really interesting on this flower. It's kind of like a bit of an oops. And I am just going to allow that to happen. Also, the center, the yellow of the center of the floral is also mixing in on that one little edge. But I kind of like how it's turned out. So it's one of these oops, happy accidents, as they call them, when you can just let something happen and just go with it. So I'm going to allow that first layer of that color in that corner to dry before I apply any other color to it. And I'm going to move back to the sunflower again. So if I'm just going to hold this up. I don't want that one flower to drip, so I'm just going to slowly hold it up. So this is how this is starting to look. Now just flip it around so that you can see that it looks more like a sunflower, and the other flowers have the stems on them, just the way I've chosen. And I'll probably add more foliage and more greenery and leaves just to add a little bit of extra interest to the page before I'm through with it. But that's basically the base colors of the watercolor. And what I will do next is just add some more layers of color, just to give the light and darks of the sort of the graduated washes of color that give the flower its form on the page, just to sort of replicate what I'm seeing on the photo, or in the case of painting in plein air outside, just painting the form that you see in front of you, looking for the lights and looking for the shadows. And so not only are you focusing on the color of the object, which is, in the case of the sunflower, is this golden yellow, you are also adding color that gives the feeling of the light and the shadow in the petals and the center of the flower, to give it the depth and the form and the structure that you want to portray. So this is, I think, all I'm going to cover for tonight. And well, I think actually this flower, so maybe I'll just do a little bit more with the sunflower, and just to give you an idea how to layer up the colors. So I'm just going to use I have 3 different yellows on my palette. I'm just going to use them again, just to add some extra depth and lights and darks in the painting. So I'm basically going into each petal and just adding more color to the center, and just leaving less color on the outer edges of each petal. and some of the petals that were lighter to begin with is going to show up a little better than some of the petals that were already a bit dark. And I'm just going to go around the center of the flower again and just try and have the sort of the sense of the sunflower seeds in the center of the flower. So I'm also going to just add a little bit of reds and see how that works. And so the reds, adding the red to this yellow and green along the edges is going to give sort of a nice brown by mixing these tones together of the complementary colors of red and green. Make a nice sort of reddish brown color. Hopefully that is what I'm hoping and attempting to do here. And I think I'm going to just try to just add some brown that is right on the palette here as well. And just dab it in. I just want to give an impression of the seeds in the center of the flower. So that is how it's looking for now. And I think I'm also going to add a deeper green to the center of the leaves. So I'm choosing next to the green, this one green on the palette is a deeper green. So I'm just going to, and I don't want to use this teal green because it's a little bit too bluish and it's not organic enough looking. So I'm going to try this green. And I think, yeah, this is a nice green. I think that'll just go well just to add to the richness and add some variety and texture. So that we have just a little bit of more of a lights and darks on my leaves as well as on the florals. Okay, so doing some cleaning right outside my door, so it's getting really loud. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I'm just going to show you this one last time with the layers of greens starting to build up more on the leaves and on the stem and on the center of the sunflower. And I'm going to add some more and I will photograph it And thank you so much for being here tonight and watching. Bye for now.